found us again. Another one has found us.
We have to go further.
Not yet.
They're breeding on one another. The vampires are creating vampires.
The monster wants you.
It's a geometric progression. 2 times 2 times 4 times 8.
There's a dead man upstairs.
In the fall of 1979, American television audiences were introduced to a chilling new vision of vampires that would forever change the landscape of horror on the small screen. Salem's Lot, a 2-part miniseries based on Stephen King's novel, brought the terror of the undead to the homes of millions, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in television horror. Television was such an event-oriented thing at the time. If you didn't see it when it happened, there was no going back to it. As the sun sets over the fictional town of Salem's Lot, Maine, viewers were drawn into a world where ancient evil lurks behind picturesque New England facades. The series, with its unforgettable images of floating vampiric children scratching at windows and the terrifying Nosferatu-like master vampire Kurt Barlow, would burn itself into the collective memory of a generation. But how did this groundbreaking series come to be? How did the second novel of a rising horror author become a television event that would influence the genre for decades to come? To understand the impact and legacy of Salem's Lot, we must journey back to the mid-1970s, when a young writer named Stephen King first put pen to paper and brought the doomed town of Jerusalem's Lot to life. In 1975, Stephen King, fresh off the success of his debut novel, Carrie, released his sophomore effort, Salem's Lot. Drawing inspiration from Bram Stoker's Dracula and the concept of the corrupt small town, King transplanted the vampire myth into contemporary American society. King's vivid descriptions of the town and its inhabitants, coupled with the creeping dread of vampiric invasion, made Salem's Lot a bestseller. The book's success naturally attracted the attention of Hollywood producers, eager to capitalize on the rising star of horror literature. Initially, the rights to Salem's Lot were optioned for a feature film. Warner Brothers saw potential in King's story, envisioning a cinematic experience that would rival classic vampire films. Interestingly, Tobe Hooper was attached to the project even at this early stage, originally slated to direct the feature film version. However, as pre-production discussions progressed, it became clear that the depth and breadth of King's novel would be challenging to condense into a standard 2-hour movie format. The producers realized they needed more time to properly develop the characters and build the intricate story King had created. Enter Richard Kobritz, a television producer with a keen eye for compelling material, who had previously worked on Someone's Watching Me, a TV movie directed by John Carpenter. He would go on to produce another King classic a few years later with Christine. Kobritz recognized that the episodic nature of King's storytelling, with its large cast of characters and gradually building suspense, might be better suited to a different medium. He successfully pitched the idea of adapting Salem's Lot as a television miniseries to CBS. This format, while presenting its own set of challenges, offered the opportunity to more faithfully adapt King's work. It would allow for a slower burn, mirroring the novel's pacing and giving viewers time to become invested in the town and its residents before unleashing the full horror from these creatures of the night. With the project greenlit as a miniseries, Kobritz's next task was to assemble a team that could bring King's vision to life within the constraints of television production. For the crucial role of director, Kobritz was still able to enlist Tobe Hooper for the TV version. Hooper had recently shocked audiences with his low-budget, high-impact film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. His ability to create visceral horror on a limited budget made him an ideal choice for translating King's work to the small screen.
Salem's Lot started as a feature, but it was impossible really to tell that story in 2 hours. So it's a two-part TV thing.
So look at our eyes.
Adapting King's sprawling novel for television fell to veteran screenwriter Paul Monash. Monash was the perfect choice for this project, having already demonstrated his ability to adapt King's work with the screenplay for Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma. His experience with King's material, combined with his understanding of how to translate literary horror to the screen, made him an ideal fit for Salem's Lot. Monash's task was formidable. He needed to condense the novel's extensive cast and numerous subplots while maintaining the core story and atmosphere. His screenplay focused on the central characters and the gradual revelation of the vampire threat, carefully building tension over the course of the miniseries. The casting process for Salem's Lot brought together an impressive mix of established Hollywood icons, up-and-coming talent, and character actors, each bringing depth and authenticity to their roles. For the lead role of Ben Mears, the producers cast David Soul, best known for his role as Detective Kenneth Hutch Hutchinson on the popular series Starsky and Hutch. Soul brought star power and a relatable everyman quality to the character of the writer returning to his hometown. In a casting coup, the prestigious British actor James Mason agreed to play Richard Straker, the human familiar of the vampire Kurt Barlow. Mason, an iconic figure in cinema, had starred in numerous classics, including the 1954 version of A Star is Born opposite Judy Garland. His gravitas and subtle menace added depth to the character of Straker, making him a memorable and chilling presence. Mason's involvement lent considerable prestige to the production, elevating it beyond typical television fare of the time. For the pivotal role of the master vampire Kurt Barlow, the production chose Austrian actor Reggie Nalder. Known for his distinctive, somewhat unsettling appearance due to facial scarring from a real-life accident, Nalder's Barlow was designed to be more monstrous and less seductive than traditional vampire portrayals, which also moved away from the character described in King's novel. The miniseries also featured an impressive array of supporting talent. Bonnie Bedelia, who would later gain widespread recognition for her roles in the Die Hard franchise and Presumed Innocent, brought a quiet strength to the character of Susan Norton. Lew Ayres, a leading man from the golden age of Hollywood, known for his Academy Award-nominated role in Johnny Belinda and the Dr. Kildare film series, added gravitas as the elderly teacher Jason Burke. Lance Kerwin delivered a compelling performance as young Mark Petrie, crucial to many of the series' most memorable scenes. Jeffrey Lewis, father of actress Juliette Lewis, brought his considerable character actor chops to the role of Mike Ryerson, creating one of the series' most unsettling transformations. In an interesting casting choice, James Mason's real-life wife, Clarissa K. Mason, was cast as Marjorie Glick, whose transformation scene became one of the miniseries' most talked about moments. Ed Flanders portrayed Susan Norton's father, Bill Norton, the town doctor, before going on to achieve greater recognition as another medicine man in his Emmy-winning role as Dr. Donald Westfall in Saint Elsewhere. The cast also included George Dzunza as Cully Sawyer, who would later gain fame in Law and Order, Elisha Cook Jr. as Gordon Weasel Phillips, a familiar face from classic films like The Maltese Falcon, and Marie Windsor as Eva Miller, known for her work in film noir. Fred Willard was cast as Larry Crockett. Willard, who would later become known for his comedic roles, brought a touch of sleaze to the character of the real estate agent. This early dramatic turn in his career highlighted Willard's versatility as an actor.
One of the more frightening moments for me in that film was a scene where Ben Mears, my character, goes up to the Marsden house, the House of Evil, stands at the bottom of the drive looking up at the house when Mr. Straker suddenly appears. And he just looks at me. He says,
Good evening.
and then he turns and walks up the drive, up to the house. Well, you can feel Ben sweat. And it was a horrifying moment to face the man who lived in the house of evil.
While King's novel was set in Maine, the production team chose to film primarily in Ferndale, California. This picturesque Victorian-era town, which has featured as a location for several movies, including The Majestic and Outbreak, provided the perfect backdrop for Salem's Lot, with its well-preserved architecture and small-town atmosphere. The Marston House, a central location in the story, was created using a combination of an actual house in Ferndale and carefully building a facade over it. The production design team worked tirelessly to create an authentic New England feel, despite the West Coast location. For interior scenes, the production moved to the Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, California. The studio's vast sound stages provided the controlled environment necessary for creating the intricate indoor sets, particularly for key locations like the Marston House interiors and Ben Mears' boarding house room. The use of these studio facilities allowed for greater control over lighting and special effects, crucial for creating the eerie atmosphere that became a hallmark of the miniseries. Hooper used creative techniques to build a sense of dread. He employed unusual camera angles, creative lighting, and deliberate pacing to create an oppressive atmosphere that grew more intense as the story progressed.
Because that story needed to come through the eyes of the people in the town. What was happening to them and their reaction to it was the thing that made the film scary.
Given the limitations of television production in the late 1970s, the special effects team had to be particularly inventive. One of the most memorable effects was the floating vampire boy, Ralphie Glick, scratching at the window. The floating effect was created not with wires, but by creating a bodysuit that attached to a boom crane behind him. Brad Savage, who played Danny Glick, points out that he and Ron Scribner, who played his younger brother in the horror series, performed the window scenes in reverse. If you look closely at the hospital scene, note the way the smoke and mist retreat backward, becoming denser and ribbon-like, instead of flowing out and dissipating. I remember we did the bite shots backwards, so you'd start with the fangs in the neck, and then he'd pull back, and then float around a little bit, Savage said. Then, they played it in reverse. The result antagonizes the viewer's sense of perception in ways that might not be immediately obvious. The makeup for Kurt Barlow, designed to be shocking and monstrous, was particularly effective. The team drew inspiration from Max Schreck's appearance in Nosferatu, creating a vampire that was more bat-like and bestial than the suave, aristocratic vampires often seen in films from that time. The haunting musical score, composed by Harry Sukman, played a crucial role in establishing the miniseries atmosphere. Sukman's eerie compositions underscored the growing sense of unease and horror, becoming an integral part of the viewing experience. Salem's Lot premiered on CBS over 2 nights in November 1979.
Do you believe a thing can be inherently evil? The Marston House, for instance.
How do you like that old house?
Needs work, but we have time.
Despite concerns about how a horror story would fare on network television, the miniseries was a ratings success. Millions of viewers tuned in, drawn by King's name, the star power of the cast, and effective marketing that played up the story's chilling elements. Critics, too, were largely positive. Many praise the adaptation's ability to create genuine scares within the confines of television, with particular acclaim going to the performances, especially those of Mason
Good evening.
and Soul.
Since I came here,
Recognizing the potential for international appeal, a shortened version of Salem's Lot was prepared for theatrical release in Europe. This edit, running approximately 112 minutes, condensed the story while maintaining its core horror elements. While some nuances were lost in this version, it helped introduce King's tale to a broader global audience.
You can do nothing against the master. Stop, holy man! You cut the boy's throat. Back, holy man, back, shaman! Back, priest! What would you give for this miserable boy?
What do you ask?
What would you give to reprieve him this night to save him for another night?
What do you want?
The master wants you.
Reggie Nolder. Yeah, you know, it's like Reggie Nolder was born to play this role. He didn't really like it very much because he had to wear those contact lenses and his makeup kept falling off and we had to stop and call makeup and come in and reset his face and reset his eyes and reset his teeth and his fingernails, you know, those long 8-inch fingernails he had, whatever they were. So he didn't like that, but he did like the money.
The 1979 adaptation of Salem's Lot left an indelible mark on television horror. It demonstrated that long-form television could effectively handle complex horror narratives, paving the way for future miniseries, and eventually, the horror-themed shows that would become popular in later decades. Many moments from the miniseries became iconic, particularly the image of the vampire boy floating outside the window, a scene that has been referenced and parodied numerous times in popular culture. Back in 1979, King applauded the show, apart from some light casting quarrels, and even rented out a whole tavern to watch the telecast with his friends. He admitted he initially had low expectations, since broadcast TV in those days tended to tone things down. Considering the medium, they did a real good job, King wrote. The enduring popularity of King's novel and the success of the 1979 miniseries led to further adaptations.
you're not leaving Salem's Lot, are you?
In 1994, BBC Radio released a 7-part full-cast audio series to critical acclaim adapted by Gregory Evans and directed by Adrian Bean. In 2004, TNT aired a new 2-part version of Salem's Lot, starring Rob Lowe as Ben Mears. This adaptation took some liberties with the source material, updating the setting and some character dynamics for a contemporary audience, receiving mixed reviews when it aired. The story of a small Maine town, overrun by ancient evil, retains its power to chill the blood and quicken the pulse. In the annals of vampire lore, Stephen King's tale of evil infecting a small town holds a special place. One can only wonder when and how the vampires of Salem's Lot will next materialize to terrify a new generation of horror fans.
Can it be evil in its stone foundations, in its wooden beams, in the glass of its windows, in the plaster of its ceilings? Evil.